Hello, hello, hello. Well, listen. Today's show we're going to be talking about Canada, all about Canada. It's all about Canada. Our big header is Canada and the New World Order. So, it's been quite an eventful past, I would say, 7 to 10 days as it relates to Canada, Canada's Prime Minister Carney, and what's going on the global stage. So we're going to get right into it. As it relates to Canada and the New World Order, I want to start off by setting a little bit of a context for us. So first of all, Canada, last week the Prime Minister went to China, and it was the first Canadian Prime Minister had gone to China in more than 10 years. And some significant things were said. Even leading up to that trip, some significant things were said, some faux pas were made, some walkbacks had to happen, and so on. So I want to put some things in context for you. When you hear how the Prime Minister has had to speak, you have to remember what has been going on. So one of the things that has been going on is a 35% tariff on all imports that don't comply with the Canadian US Mexico agreement. That's the CUSMA, right? And that was in effect since last year. A 10% tariff on non-CUSMA compliant potash and energy products, not to mention other stress and strain, not to mention the just erratic ways that the current president of the United States has chosen to behave as it relates to Canada, leading into the tariffs. He was, threatening us that we're going to be the 51st state. He doesn't even understand that we're like the fourth largest landmass in the world. You can't just, anyway, he doesn't even know about the War of 1812, but I digress. So Canada, in that context, has had to be ensuring that they forge new partnerships, given how the U.S. has been treating us. Since 1970, China had the one China policy, and that remains. And, it's given all the things, given that we don't even know if CUSMA will remain in place. Prime Minister Carney has had to make some moves, and he's making these moves ever since he got into power. So one of the things I want to quote him here saying, Canada's new government has a mandate to diversify and strengthen international partnerships. To that end, we took a historic step forward to deepen Canada's relationship with the EU through increased cooperation in defense, trade, commerce, and will create greater prosperity, security, and stability on both sides of the Atlantic. So this quote goes back to June of 2025, where he went and met with the EU. Coming out of that meeting, of course, some new strategic partnerships with these countries. He announced, for instance, strengthening of security measures. So one, he announced a historic step forward for the Canadian relationships with the EU, together with the Prime Ministers Costa and von der Leyen. They talked about the new EU Canada strategic partnership of the future, rooted in shared values and rules-based international systems, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the point is that him going to China is just one of the things that he has been doing. The first step was to go over to Europe and see what can be done. And so one of the other things that he did in Europe was the European Union Safe Initiative. So this was around security. This is important, guys, because as we see certain threats precipitating around Greenland and other places, we know that Canada has to also talk about security. So I want to play for you a little bit of a grounding clip. This is from PM Carney as he talks about Canada needing to engage with others.
We take the world as it is, not as we wish it to be. That means the following. We do engage with countries. We calibrate that engagement depending on our values and our interests, so that engagement is more narrow when there are those issues. We also have, if you will, a sort of value-based realism to the approach. In other words, We will engage on those issues. We'll engage with coalitions on those issues because that has more influence. And we will form coalitions with those countries with which we share those broader values. I will give you a current example of the last point, which is we are a member, as you know, of the Coalition of the Willing to back Ukraine. That is an example. Those countries in that coalition, over 30 countries, share values on a broad range, including all of those that I just mentioned. With other countries, our engagement is more narrow, it's more specific, and for those relationships, we're very clear about where we will cooperate, where we differ. We'll have those engagements, but in a way that looks to make progress. We have different systems, Canada and China. That has several consequences, one of which is the breadth of our engagement with China. We respect the differences in each other's systems. It does mean that our cooperation is more focused and more limited, but to have the effective relationship, we have the direct conversations. We don't grab a megaphone and have the conversations that way.
A little bit of shade there. Don't grab a megaphone and have those conversations. So that response was actually to questions while he was in China last week. That was a response to, what is going on here? What's Canada talking about? And in China, he made an interesting statement. And the statement was around New World Order. Now, if you're a Rastafarian, if you're in Jamaica, that like bells went off. I'm sure, I wish I was in Jamaica when he said it, because I know certain circles in Jamaica were abuzz. And if you are Adventist, I was raised Adventist, that rings bells for you as well. And we'll talk about the New World Order, but I want to put his China words in context. So I want to play for you what he said, and then I want to play for you what he tried to walk back, and then we'll have a conversation about New World Order, right? This is what he said. This is the quotable. This was while he was sitting with the Chinese delegation in China.
The world has changed much since that last visit. And I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney is touting a new strategic partnership with China in talks with Xi Jinping in Beijing as part of what he has said is a new world order, in part due to the fallout from Trump tariffs in the United States. Now, there's been a noticeable tone shift from Ottawa towards Beijing as Carney wraps up the first state visit to China by a Canadian leader in more than 8 years. Now, after a lengthy diplomatic chill, the two nations have signed a series of agreements, including an energy pact that could see more Chinese investment in Canada and open up opportunities for China to buy more Canadian oil and LNG. Also, in quite a breakthrough, Carney says Canada will allow 49,000 Chinese electric vehicles into Canada at a tariff of just 6.1%, down from 100%. Xi reciprocated, according to Carney, by reducing its 100% ag tariff on canola, or rapeseed, to 15%. Xi Jinping hailed the talks as having achieved positive results.
So a lot happened in that clip, because not only do you see when he said the words New World Order, especially given the context that he's sitting across from the head of China, who is also arguably the enemy of everybody else. So what is happening here? Well, Carney broke down very much a lot of details in his response after this whole incident. And so he talked about how there are 5 key areas that Canada is going to be partnering with China on. One is energy, that is clean and traditional energy, and climate competitiveness. That is where the cars come in. And he mentioned that they would be going to get 49,000 electric vehicles from China. Now, anybody who knows about China, they have a massive factory. I hear the factory is the size of San Francisco or something, like a massive production for the electric cars. And Canada is committing to take 49,000 of them. Not only are they taking 49,000, these cars are going to be in the price range of $35,000 each. And so guess what happens from that? Car manufacturers start to panic in Canada. They're like, oh my God, you're going to make these deals with China. What's going to happen to all the production here? So Carney's response was, calm down. This only represents 3% of the Canadian auto market. So it's not supposed to be seen as a threat. It's supposed to be seen as a building of a relationship. In his mind and in his explanation, he is saying, hey, we're going to take these, and in hopes that as we take commodities, we can also trade commodities. One of the commodities comes under the next of the 5 key areas. The second one is expanding trade in agriculture and food. He's aiming to increase direct trade by $7 billion in exports to China each year. One of the things that we lost in, I was saying to somebody this week, Carney's on a tip. He has to friend up back some people. We used to say that in Jamaican parlance, we say we have a friend you up. So China wasn't quite our enemy, but they weren't quite our friend. So everybody trades with China, by the way, and we have been trading with China. And Carney points out that these numbers that they're seeking is actually to get back to pre-COVID numbers with China. So obviously, when you're following your friend, the US, you were alienating China like the rest of the world, and you were acting like, China was an enemy. In fact, Carney himself said that China was a major security threat to Canada. He said that last year. So everybody's wondering, what is this turnaround? Well, the turnaround comes when your friend, US, starts treating you like an enemy. And so now you have to go and make new friends and friend up some people. So in friending up some people, he's hoping to expand trade with China. So yes, we're going to take your electric vehicles, and in return, we hope that you will start to take back the same amount of things like canola. So canola, for example, had major tariffs on it, and they're planning to drop the tariffs from 85% to 15%, right? And so in that little bit of arrangement with China, they're hoping to get back some of the market that they lost with China in shipping canola back to China. So listen out for these things. Yes, we're going to address New World Order, but I want you to understand that there is a there's some other stuff that was happening in China, some other agreements that were being made. He said another thing that they're agreeing on is global governance. So they're talking about apex leadership. Canada wants to host the leadership summit, and China says they agree. So those are the things that are coming up. Security, drugs, cybercrime, money laundering, among others, are a priority. And they say that yes, they're gonna have more communication on these things. We don't know what these things are. You have to go to the table with a plan. So this is a part of the plan. And the last item in the 5 key principles is to enhance people-to-people ties and culture. China is Canada's 7th largest source of tourism. A lot of people don't know that. And not to mention, we have like over 2 million Chinese-born Canadians. So we have a vested interest in this kind of friend up. We need to make back this friendship. So they're making agreements around visa-free access for Canadians traveling to China. That's a big deal. It will, of course, benefit China because I don't know if you keep up with TikTok, you know that there are a lot of manufacturers that have been trying to court people to come to China directly and shop. So now if Canadians get in on that, of course, this will benefit China. But imagine the border to border, culture to culture, people to people. This is the Prime Minister's goal. And these are the conversations that they had in China. Now, I want to play for you a little bit of a longer clip that talks about New World Order. And we want to put this New World Order in context. Yes, there are conspiracy theories around New World Order. We talk about this term. It's used in conspiracy to hypothesize a secretly emerging totalitarian world government. Common theme is, of course, that the New World Order is secretive. It's the elites with globalist agenda. And, a lot of people consider Prime Minister Carney a globalist. So obviously, when he says this is a major trigger. But let us see how Ray Diallo breaks down this concept of New World Order and how we need to look at it in another little light. Take away the conspiracy and let's have a little bit of a learning experience.
Part 2.
Commonly called the American World Order, formed after the Allied victory in World War II, when the U.S. emerged as the dominant world power. It was set out in agreements and treaties for how global governance and monetary systems work. In 1944, the New World Monetary System was laid out in the Bretton Woods Agreement and established the dollar as the world's leading reserve currency. A reserve currency is a currency that is commonly accepted around the world, and having one is a key factor in a country becoming the richest and most powerful empire. With a new dominant power and monetary system established, a new world order begins. These changes take place in a timeless and universal cycle that I call the Big Cycle. Studied the 10 most powerful empires over the last 500 years and the last 3 reserve currencies. It took me through the rise and decline of the Dutch Empire and the guilder, the British Empire and the pound, the rise and early decline in the United States Empire and the dollar, and the decline and rise of the Chinese Empire and its currencies, as well as the rise and decline of the Spanish, German, French, Indian, Japanese, Russian, and Ottoman empires, along with their significant conflicts, as measured in this chart. To understand China's patterns better, I also studied the rise and fall of Chinese dynasties and their monies back to the year 600. Because looking at all these measures at once can be confusing, I'll focus on the 4 most important ones: the Dutch, British, US, and Chinese. You'll quickly notice the pattern. Now let's simplify the form a bit. As you can see, they transpired in overlapping cycles that lasted about 250 years, with 10 to 20-year transition periods between them. Typically, these transitions have been periods of great conflict because leading powers don't decline without a fight. So how am I measuring an empire's power? In this study, I used 8 metrics. Each country's measure of total power is derived by averaging them together. They are education, inventiveness and technology development, competitiveness in global markets, economic output, share of world trade, military strength, the power of their financial center for capital markets, and the strength of their currency as a reserve currency. Because these powers are measurable, we can see how strong each country is now, was in the past, and whether they're rising or declining. By examining the sequences from many countries, we can see how a typical cycle transpires. And because the wiggles can be confusing, we can simplify it a bit to focus on the pattern of cause-effect relationships that drive the rise and decline of a typical empire. As you can see, better education typically leads to increased innovation and technology development, and with a lag, the establishment of the currency as a reserve currency. You can also see that these forces then declined in a similar order, reinforcing each other's decline. Let's now look at the typical sequence of events going on inside a country that produces these rises and declines.
Interesting stuff, eh? So, from an economics lens, we have to accept that. I really like his quote here: "Leading powers don't decline without a fight." And where this clip started, because it's a three-part series. You can find it on TikTok. You can find it on YouTube. In that second segment, he was really addressing the U.S., which, for all intents and purposes, felt like they were the leader of the New World Order as of 1945, aka the World Wars. And over time, US has been declining in influence, in power, in all the things. And so these new warmongers that are in the current administration, the Stephen Millers, the Steve Bannons of the world, they really want to see if the US can contend with the Chinas of the world. Russia is in decline, so they're not even in the conversation, but EU could be in the conversation when we talk about New World Order. And so enter Canada having these conversations with China, with EU, recognizing that the big power, the leading power, or the one who has lost ground is trying to regain ground. That is why Greenland is of issue, because this is all I would say a free fall, a climb back, trying to get back its status as the one who sets the world order. That's what the US is about. That's what the people in the US are about. The problem they have is multi-layered. The president they have is erratic. The president they have does not speak well on the world stage, does not represent this concept very well. And going around bullying people will cause pushback, which is what we're seeing with the Canadian government's response with the Canadian Prime Minister's speech in Davos, which we'll get to. In China, the Prime Minister says, hey, we, even through these conversations with China, we are seeing where it is becoming prudent that these progressive moves can lead us to the New World Order. Now, you can apply any lens you want to apply to it, conspiracy or not, but this is something to pay attention to. And quite a few people missed it, actually. And I was very surprised when he had his press conference after saying it, that only one reporter asked about it. And this was his response to the reporter. This is PM Carney responding. And I say he was kind of softening the tone on the New World Order.
One of the things you said in the public remarks was Canada and China, this new partnership, sets us up well for the New World Order. What did you mean by that? What is the New World Order?
Well, it's a great question, Brian, because I think the world is still determining what that order is going to be. And let's be clear what we're talking about first and foremost, which is what is going to govern global trade? What is the role of the WTO going to be? How important are bilateral deals such as the one we're developing? What this partnership does is in areas, for example, of clean energy, conventional energy, agriculture, as we were just talking about, and financial services, which we've talked less about, but the evolution of the global financial system. These are important elements of how the system is going to work. And look, the expectation is that rather than these being developed necessarily through the IMF, WTO, and other multilateral organizations, it is going to be coalitions that develop them not for the world, but for subsectors of the world.
Coalitions developing these systems, not for the world, but for subsectors of the world. Folks, take note, subsectors. I'm even writing it here because I know this will come up again, as we go through these conversations about a New World Order. So to me, Carney was trying to soften it because I think he realized he made a bit of a faux pas. I think he realized that, hey, I went and said the quiet part out loud, or hey, I went and triggered an extreme reaction, because you're going to trigger all the conspiracy theorists now who are anti-globalization and all of this stuff. You're going to go trigger all of them. So I think he was trying to soften it in that response by, speaking to the conversations that he's having with China and so on. One more thing before we get to Davos, because everybody's talking about Davos, and I will talk about Davos. One more thing is on Greenland. He had a faux pas leading up. I wouldn't even say faux pas. I'll say faux pas because I don't think he intended to get the blowback that he got. So he said that leading into the Greenland conversation, that Canada has a vested interest and Canada will defend Denmark's right to hold Greenland. Now, this was him being pro-NATO. This was him understanding that Canada has a stake here. So there are two things to consider when we talk about this Greenland thing that Cheetolini and his crew are trying to get Greenland. They claim they want to buy it, all kind of foolishness. There's Canada has to speak up. So those of you who don't want Canada to speak up, and those of you who think we can't even back it, hey, we still have to speak up, right? So one of the things to note is that Canada has sovereignty in the Arctic. Canada is 16 miles away from Greenland. There's the Arctic Archipelago rule that you need to look up. That's 1985. Canadian Rangers patrol the Arctic. Historic claims are made because we have Inuit and Métis peoples that we are protecting in the Arctic. And so Canada has always had a protective role for the Arctic. Then there is UNCLOS, that is United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which grants Canada further sovereignty. And there is Arctic exception. All of those things we could probably discuss in a whole other show. But I want you to understand that when the PM speaks up on behalf of Greenland, he is speaking from one, being a part of NATO, and two, from being a country that has Arctic sovereignty, right? So those of you who are like, oh, how dare he, or oh, he can't defend it, why do you think he's in the EU making security plans? Because yes, Canadian Army cannot go up against the US Army, duh. But if they have a coalition of NATO nations, because here's the other thing you should note. Article 5, NATO's Article 5 says, this is an agreement between members that an armed attack against one country shall be considered an attack against them all. So NATO members are obligated to respond in the event of an attack on another member country and to take action as necessary, including the use of armed force. So just so you know, those of you who are getting afraid as Carney speaks, and we're going to go into the other speech, those of you who are getting afraid, know that NATO has to back NATO members. So if the erratic guy at the south decides that he wants to attack Greenland or wants to attack even Canada, NATO has to help. And he said some very false statements in his comments in Davos. The Cheetolini guy made some very false statements, including saying that NATO has never done anything for America. How dare you? You were actually the only country who has activated Article 5. After 9/11, America activated Article 5, and every country in NATO went to their rescue. How dare you? He keeps walking around saying how much he's done for NATO. You haven't done anything for NATO. You have been a president twice now. NATO's relationship with America has predated you. Oh, we pay more fees than everybody else. Shut up. You say you're the world leader. Shut up. Anyway, so just so you know, putting certain things in context for you as we move this conversation along, I want to get to Davos because the delivery that PM Carney did in Davos, at the World Economic Forum, has rendered him a star. This has become the most exciting presentation that a prime minister has given in the World Economic Forum, to our knowledge as Canadians, in a long time. And he got a standing ovation. I think he delivered a 17-minute speech, and at the end of it, he got a standing ovation, so much so that the person leading his panel and questioning him after had to acknowledge that he can't recall the last time a prime minister speaking at Davos got that kind of response. That is the excitement that Carney has brought. And I would say that some people are saying he's inspiring world leaders. Possibly. Possibly that's why they were cheering him. Possibly that's why they were cheering him, because he is calling out the bully. He's calling out the bully and he's saying, I get it. I get it. You're going to beat up on us. I get it. We're little. You're big. I get it. But we are going to move around you. We're going to form new coalitions. We're going to make new friends. We're going to friend up some old-time friends. And we're going to do our endeavor best, as we would say in Jamaica, or endeavor best to stave off what you have planned for the rest of the world as you try to claw your way back to the top. This is the summary of his message, I would say, to the US when he spoke at Davos. But we're gonna go into it in a little bit more detail. So let me see if I can pull up some slides for you, because we gotta talk about these things. Here's one. I really liked this quote. This is from his presentation in Davos. This is PM Carney when he was presenting in Davos. And here he's talking about a world of fortresses. He had about maybe 6 quotables coming out of his speech, and I want to highlight some of them, you know, and we'll play some clips too. If you are not at the table, you are on the menu. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. The old order is not coming back. Nostalgia is not strategy. A world of fortresses will be poorer, more fragile, and less sustainable. That's this quote here. He says, when the rules no longer protect you, you must protect yourself. But let us be clear-eyed about where this leads. A world of fortresses will be poorer, more fragile, and less sustainable. Now, you can read into that as you will, but think about it. Fortresses is what America is going after now. Remember when they said they're America first and they're doing this exceptionalism and they're shutting out people? First, we're going to get rid of all the immigrants. Then we're going to, close in the ranks. Then we're going to, steal some resources, because that's what they're trying to do in Venezuela. Steal some resources. And know that Canada is an energy power. I've spoken about this before, and I will do a whole thing on that. Canada is an energy power. So don't think that he's talking about Canada being a 51st state is not a part of stealing some stuff, right? So when he's saying here, Carney's saying here, a world of fortresses will leave us poorer, more fragile, and less sustainable. He's warning them. Okay, keep doing that America first stuff. Keep closing in and shutting out and thinking that you can go it alone. What is going to happen is all of us are going to build our little fortresses, and in between, trade becomes affected. In between, movement of people become affected. In between, movement of money become affected. So this man is, I'm telling you, the speech was so neat. It deserves all the praise that he's getting, because the speech was so neat, because he was so uniquely addressing a number of things. And I want to tell you, he only mentioned America's name once, because everybody in the room knew. If you knew, you knew what he was referring to. And this, I tell you, is a warning directly to America. Stop with the building of this fortress that you think you are designing, because overall, everybody is going to respond with that kind of reaction, and they're all going to try to make their own fortresses and leave the place more fragile. Because as you saw in the video about New World Order, there is no New World Order without conflict, without wars. And as the quote says, leading powers do not decline without a fight. So Carney is waxing prolific here and prophetic here, because people need to know that whatever Cheetolini is planning may not work in his best interest. Here's another quotable that I want to bring up, because, oh boy, I tell you, this one I thought was a big one. American hegemony, in particular, helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, and collective security. This bargain no longer works. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as a weapon, tariffs as leverage. He mentioned America one time. This was it. And you hear what he's speaking to here. And I want to bring up the clip, because I'm telling you, this presentation was quite the presentation. Let me see if I can find it. Listen to this.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination. The multilateral institutions on which the middle powers have relied, the WTO, the UN, the COP, the architecture, the very architecture of collective problem solving are under threat. And as a result, many countries are drawing the same conclusions, that they must develop greater strategic autonomy in energy, food, critical minerals, in finance and supply chains. And this impulse is understandable. A country that can't feed itself, fuel itself, or defend itself has few options. When the rules no longer protect you, you must protect yourself. But let's be clear-eyed about where this leads. A world of fortresses will be poorer, more fragile, and less sustainable. And there's another truth. If great powers abandon even the pretense of rules and values for the unhindered pursuit of their power and interests, the gains from transactionalism will become harder to replicate.
You understand what he's saying? You understand the call out that is? Listen, man. So he is saying, all right, I don't think you understand what we have at play here. When you challenge NATO, this is what America is doing. America is calling out NATO and challenging NATO countries to battle, basically. Right? And fighting over Greenland and all of these things. Recently, their stock market plunged because he threatened all the countries that are supporting Greenland, threatened them with tariffs. Carney is calling it out. And Carney is saying, this move that you're doing, all of these institutions that you're attacking, renders us in a position where we have to make now some strategic, autonomous moves. Because you are rendering us unsafe. We're realizing that the friendships that we thought we had with you, America, are in danger. We're realizing that you are now a threat. That is in essence what he's saying. You, America, are now a threat, and we have to treat you as such. We have to realize that the old ways don't work. And that leads me to another thing that he talks about, that I want to point to. I'm telling you, Carney was on a roll. Let's see this one. He says countries need a third path. Listen to this. So, in a world of great power rivalry, the countries in between have a choice to compete with each other for favor or to combine to create a third path with impact. This comes back to his New World Order conversation. The country he calls them middle rulers, middle leaders, he had an important middle powers. When you're seeing the great power rivalry, countries in between have a choice to compete with each other for favor or to combine, make a fist, and create a third path for impact. Right? So let's play this short clip on middle powers.
Argue the middle powers must act together because if we're not at the table, we're on the menu. Great powers can afford for now to go it alone. They have the market size, the military capacity, and the leverage to dictate terms. Middle powers do not. But when we only negotiate bilaterally with a hegemon, we negotiate from weakness. We accept what's offered. We compete with each other to be the most accommodating. This is not sovereignty. It's the performance of sovereignty while accepting subordination.
You hear that? This is not sovereignty to acquiesce to the US and play along. This is a big call out, you know. This is a big call out in a room with leaders of top companies and leaders of the world. It's a big call out. Yes, you can stay there playing with the US. Stay there playing with them and see where it lands us. Because middle powers can't fight them on their own. But guys, if we come together, strike a fist. Listen, I love the call outs. And then there is and you heard the quotable there about if you are not at the table, you're on the menu. Dropping all kinds of quotables, you know. That quote isn't even his original quote, but it was so apropos to talk about how if you are not fighting for yourselves as smaller and middle powers, you will be gobbled up. You'll be gobbled up by the systems. So here is another one that I wanted to point out. Is another quotable. America has become a force of destabilization. The old order is not coming back. Nostalgia is not a strategy. I think this one was one of the most powerful quotes, actually. A lot of people liked the if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. I think this actually is the bigger one. What he is calling out here is you have trusted America. We have all trusted America. And we are sitting here, sitting on our hands, going, it will get better. Sitting on our hands going, he doesn't really mean it when he threatens everybody. Sitting on our hands going, oh, all these erratic messages he's sending to Norway, we can ignore him. All these messages he's sending about Greenland, we can ignore him. We cannot continue to sit on our hands because the old way is gone. The old way where this US was a part of us, was with us, they are not with us anymore, and they are threatening every structure around that. So you can't say it's going to come back. That is not a strategy. These are big shots in fire. Big shots in fire, man. I was like, whoa, impressive. So, and then he went into a bit that I thought was very interesting. He talked about workers of the world unite. And this was a slogan that was popular in Czechoslovakia back in 1948 when there was a communist takeover, or what they call Victorious February, during the Prague Spring of 1968 as well. There was propaganda posters that were appearing symbolizing worker solidarity against capitalist forces, and later as a rallying cry for reforms through brutally suppressed Soviet Union tanks. So we're suppressing people. So here's the thing. Carney brings up this story where he talks about people putting in their window, shopkeepers putting in their window signs that said workers of the world, unite. And he then says to the people sitting in Davos, it is time for us to remove the sign from the window. All in line with this, nostalgia is not strategy. All in line with this, we have all believed, we have all worshipped at the throne of this order that the US was in charge of. We have all worshipped at these institutions being stable, and now we're finding out that they're not stable. Take the sign out of the window and wake up, because we are in for a serious set of troubles if we continue to hold back, sit on our hands, not fight back, not find and form new coalitions. This is what he's saying. major strategic speech. Now, of course, our friend to the south, Cheetolini, had a lot to say after, because he spoke after Carney. His speech was sometime after. And obviously he didn't feel good about it. But because Carney was so intelligent and he's not, he couldn't even address it properly. He couldn't even retort properly to what Carney was saying. He couldn't even retort properly because he's not that smart. And his people may have written words for him to say that may have sounded smart, but that's a waste. That's a waste. You put him in front of a mic, and think he's going to stick to the script? Good luck. So I'm going to play for you some of what that guy said. I may have to bathe after all of these clips because, I can't stand him. And so let's see. So here was his response to Canada.
Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your prime minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. They should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
That was his retort to Canada. Remember that, Mark, next time you make your statements. Canada lives because of the U.S. You see the grandiose idea of itself. Yes, U.S. has been Canada's largest trading partner, but you have also exacted so much tariffs that Canada has had to be looking for other trading partners. So you coming now with your Johnny-come-lately threats against Canada may not have that much power. May not scare us as much because now we realize that our prime minister is waking up and our prime minister is speaking with some strength. Whether or not this speech goes somewhere is another topic. But, we are not threatened by an unhinged leader that goes in front of the World Economic Forum and speaks a whole bunch of rubbish. So we'll give you an example of him spiraling. This is your president, those of you who are American. Watch this.
Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. I settled 8 other wars: India, Pakistan, Armenia, Azerbaijan, Iceland. They loved me. They called me daddy, right, last time. Very smart man said, he's our daddy. The problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%, but I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. If we gave them the call, they're not there for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. I mean, our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. We want a piece of ice for world protection, and they won't give it. We probably won't get anything unless I decide to use excessive strength and force, but I won't do that. The cost of prescription drugs is coming down by up to 90%, depending on the way you calculate. You could also say 5, 6, 7, 800%. There are 2 ways of figuring that. I'll be announcing a new Fed chairman in the not too distant future. I think he'll do a very good job. See, I gave away some of it. He did give that away. So we have something, got something. Minnesota. We actually are helping Minnesota so much, but they don't appreciate it. I know Gavin was here. I used to get along so great with Gavin when I was president. Gavin's a good guy. I will say this, if I were a Democrat governor or whatever, I would call up Trump. I'd say, come on in, make us look good. I know so many people from Switzerland, incredible place, incredible, brilliant place. But I then realized that they're only good because of us. And there's so many other examples. I mean, us, probably other places. The Spanish flu in World War I ended because all the soldiers were sick. The soldiers were so sick on both sides from the Spanish flu. They were sick as dogs. They couldn't fight.
I actually don't know if I can play any more of the clips because that one remained one that makes me sick. America, we're not ashamed. America, aren't you ashamed? This is who you have unleashed on us as your so-called leader. Rambling, babbling fool. Pure lies, just reckless statements. how did we get here, America? Honestly. So this was his speech and his question and answer segment. These are that's mashups from some of the foolishness that he said, because I don't know who listened to the whole speech straight, because it's hard to listen to. The man even brought up Somalia. He said the Somalians in Minnesota are stealing $19 billion and all kind of stuff, and what does that have to do with Davos? Did they tell him where he was? The World Economic Forum, this is where, as an American president, since you are going and clawing back to the top, you're supposed to come in with strength. You're supposed to come in and show off how valuable you are in the world. Not making up these stories about wars that you ended, wars that didn't even exist. I remember they a couple of them that he says he solved. They were like, we didn't even know we were at war. Right? Staking claim to all kind of crap. America, under no shame. It is so tiring and maddening for those of us outside of America to observe this man, to endure this man. And I'm telling you, if you are sensing any kind of excitement from Canadians, it's because of him too. It's because of him, because we can now literally juxtapose, compare, and contrast a good leader versus a bad leader, right? And all the Canadians that are anti-liberal and anti your government, good luck, because the guy you wanted in instead of Carney would have been just as stupid as Trump. Now ask him, I tell you, right? So the world couldn't take that. The world couldn't take the two North American countries showing off on the world stage with madness. The world couldn't handle it. It would have been too much for us. We'd have vomit. We'd have all been sick to our stomach. So let the economist do his work. I don't know. I haven't seen any great results. He's just in like barely in a year. So let's see what these the New World Order will bring. Let's see if even his speech in Davos will inspire people, right? Let's see what comes out of conversations that he's had with the European Union. What comes out of conversations that he's had with other entities, including China. Let's see. Because I'm telling you, up until he made that first move with the EU, up until he got in power, the tariffs and all the other ripple effects from that has been impacting the Canadian economy significantly. He has made some other moves internally, like he is opening up opportunities for businesses. He is funding some initiatives. He is making some investments in the country that are supposed to help to move machinery along. So let us see. Let us see, because we were facing, almost extinction, almost going to become the 51st state. And now we have a prime minister who seems to be energized, seems to identify that, as he says, nostalgia is not strategy, seems to identify that, we can't keep sitting on our hands. And so I'm going to keep moving through. I'm going to make new friendships. I'm going to re-friend up some people, because this will advance what we need to do in Canada. He is working to encourage the Canadian economy to grow and also to stabilize, because we have been in free fall like most other countries. This is why his speech is so important in Davos. It's not Canada alone feeling the pressure. I'm telling you, I've told people so many times, if you know anybody in the UK, call them and ask them, how are things economically in the UK? Because I know North Americans, you guys think is you alone in the world, but all around the globe, especially post-COVID, countries have been experiencing major stresses, economic stress, right? Healthcare is in crisis in multiple countries. So you're not unique or special in what has been happening. And what Carney is saying is, okay, we're waking up now. Okay. We can't trust the old friendships. Got it. We can't. We're going to be rendered helpless. You hear him say, if you can't defend yourself, if you can't feed yourself, you have no options. So he's giving the country options. Let's see. Let's see. He's talking about New World Order because the old world order isn't working. Isn't working. Right? Do I think there's some tinge of the conspiracy playing? I'll have a longer conversation about New World Order. Because I don't think it works how we've thought all these years. Yes, there are elites. Davos is pure elites down there now. The head of everything, the head of every major company was in Davos. So yes, the New World Order is a part of that. Yes, the elites getting together. Yes, the oligarchs getting together. Yes, them planning what can we get money out of. And the leaders of the other countries are there to talk to them because they want either product or trading or something from them. So yes, when he says New World Order, you should be triggered. Yes, be triggered. But also watch it play out. Also watch it play out. Because I think he will, after Davos, he's going to come down again, you know. Because it's a dance we have to do with the madman. With the madman in America, makes us have to dance. So you go in front of everybody and say, listen, guys, wake up. We're going to have to get stronger. We're going to have to move like a fist. We're going to have to make some strategic partnerships. And people are listening, you know. The EU and South American countries have made a trade agreement, historic. All of this has happened in the last week, guys. So movement is happening. But I know when he comes back around and he wants to talk to the guy in the south of Canada, he will have to soften the rhetoric, right? Because you don't want the man baby to go off on a tangent and start threatening attacks and all kind of foolishness. So Carney, I think he gets it. And I think he realizes that, yes, I have to talk a certain way out here, but when I go back in the room with them, I'm going to soften. I know that's what he's going to have to do. Because it is not easy playing with this madman. Not even slightly easy playing with this madman. Right? So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Has Canada entered the New World Order? Is Canada part of the New World Order? We'll see. That's it for that for now. I think this topic will continue because I think the fallout from Davos is yet to be seen. World Economic Forum, as it wraps up, we're seeing all kinds of craziness because the Argentinian Prime Minister spoke and he was praising Cheetolini. So much will come out of this. We have not seen the end of it yet. There are many things to watch. I'm keeping an eye out for a number of activities that will impact North America. This is the year of the World Cup, and I don't know that with ice running amok in America, if people should really feel safe going to America to watch these games. I'm personally going to likely boycott any games that are being played on American soil. If I watch any of the games, I won't be watching those. Just me personally. FIFA is already a problem, but me personally, I am fully in, like, I'm done with America foolishness. I'm done with it, right? I'm not planning to go south of the border because they're looking at people's social media and grabbing you out of lines and doing all kind of stuff. Come on, guys. America, really? Really? You who ran on freedom of speech wants to silence everybody, wants to silence critique? Wait, what is MAGA really about? All the things that you say are about you only want it for yourself. Oh, got it. Anyway, because this has been quite a Canadian focus, focusing on the Prime Minister of Canada, not only in his visit to China, not only in his visit to the World Economic Forum in Davos. I wanted to end on a Canadian note. So I'm going to pull up something for you. to look at and to check out, because I was going to keep it Canadian. So this is the arts bit. This is the arts bit of the show. I want you to see that. Exco Levi. Exco Levi is a Canadian reggae artist. He has 6 Juno Awards. Juno is equivalent to the American Grammys. And Exco has a new song called Student of a Broken Heart. The video is out on YouTube. I am encouraging you to check it out. It's a nice song. Actually, check out all of his songs. To be honest, you will become a fan. Don't just watch this video, watch others. I guarantee you will become a fan, a full-fledged fan of Exco Levi. So that's how I want to end this evening. I want to encourage you to go check him out. Exco Levi, Student of a Broken Heart. Very, almost catchy and kind of up-tempo song. It's not a weepy heartbreak song. It's a song that's acknowledging that we're all life students and we continue to learn. So I encourage you to go check it out. I have some favorites from Exco I could list. Life in the Factory, Dutchy Want Food, Strive. Just check out his entire discography. You will become a fan. I guarantee you will follow him on Spotify. You will, like all his videos, and so on. Go check him out. All right, guys. That's it for Talk the Things this week. I just wanted to come in here and talk about Carney and Davos and all the things that is Canada and the New World Order. And since we're setting order, go check out Exco Levi. Take care and walk good.